If you want to see a card kit packed with tons of supplies, including pattern paper, cardstock, stamps, dies, embossing folders, stencil, and more, then you need to watch this video. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel, and this video is sponsored by Pink & Main. If you don't know Pink & Main yet, you need to check them out. They have a huge assortment of supplies that they make themselves for their brand. I am talking embossing folders, pattern paper, stamps, dies, and so much more. And this kit is packed with a ton of them. So let's unbox the kit so you can see all the different supplies that come inside. This is the Crafty Courtyard kit from Pink & Main for October 2022. You get 6 pieces of colorful cardstock, 2 pieces of white cardstock, and these really nice sparkly enamel dots that come in several sizes and colors. You'll also get a pack of sequins, and I love the mix of flowers and sequins. Pink & Main pattern paper, you're a blessing, and it's double-sided pattern paper, just some amazing styles. That one there, you could just turn into a card, just cut it down 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and you got a card all ready to go. And lots of really pretty colors. I love the speech bubbles, but then also lots of versatile patterns like dots, stripes. There are some stickers that you can use as envelope sealers. There's a 6x6 stencil with mini dots on it. I absolutely love these little dots. This is the die set. So it's a heart that will cut out the stamps, but there's also a die that will cut out the letters thank you, just like that stamp there. So you get both in the kit, which I think is really cool. And I like the fact that you can cut out those hearts with everything that is in the die set, and that there are all those sub-sentiments as well. There's an embossing folder in the kit. It's these triangles with dots. I absolutely love their embossing folders. They're 6x6, so you can completely cover an A2 card front. So with all these different items in the kit, I wanted to show each of them and to really use them so that you can see how much fun they are. Now I'm gonna make a bunch of cards, and I really wanna use all the supplies inside the kit so that you can see all the different techniques that you can do with those supplies. So first up, we're going to use the dies and the sequins to make a shaker card. So I'm going to take the large open heart and I'm going to cut it out on a piece of 4 by 5 1/4 of the cardstock. That's the pink. Then I cut out a purple, and then I'm layering the second die on top to cut out that purple outline there. And I'm gonna lay that over some white cardstock that I also cut the heart out of. So lots of hearts here. I absolutely love hearts, you know that. For placement of those little dots in the letters, I just put a little dot of glue behind that little piece that needs to go in there, and then just pop the whole letter in to the open area so that I can then just remove the letter, and the little dot inside the O will stay exactly where I placed it. And that's just an easy way to do that. For the shaker, I'm going to pencil in an outline of the heart, and that's going to be where I want the sentiment on the base of the card to be. So I'm going to glue that right on top of that pencil line. That's going to show me exactly where the shaker is going to go. I'm going to use this tape runner because it has a swivel top edge and it goes right around the heart there. So that's why I like to use a tape runner like this, so that you can completely adhere in that heart, and you're going to adhere the whole thing to a piece of acetate. Mine was a little bit larger. It was an actual A2 piece of acetate, so I just had to trim it down. I'm going to use a sub-sentiment from the stamp set and white heat emboss it. Try not to get any in that little opening there. I probably should have done that before I applied it to the acetate, but that's okay. It's all right. So then just when I'm heat setting it, I also had to be careful because I didn't want to melt the acetate. Okay, now that we have the window and the sub-sentiment, I'm just going to use a simple rectangle around that window of the heart to keep the sequins just where the heart is, because if you do a rectangle all the way at the top and bottom, those sequins are going to get lost at the bottom of the card. So now I'm just going to pour the sequins right on top of the thank you heart, just so that I can see that I have enough, but not so many that I'm completely covering up the sentiment. I tend to use more sequins than I need. So this time I was really careful not to use so many that you couldn't read the thank you. So I'm gonna pull off those protective layers of that foam tape and just lay it down on top, and you've got your shaker, which was really easy to make, but also lots of fun, and I love these colors. Next, we're going to use the stencil on Kraft cardstock. If you use Distress Oxide ink, you can actually ink on Kraft cardstock or even dark colors of cardstock, and it will show up. And that's because the Distress Oxide has some elements of a pigment ink which sits on top of the paper. So I'm using an ergonomic Pink and Main blending brush to blend out salvaged patina on top of Kraft cardstock. And you can see how beautifully it shows up on the Kraft. Now, if you use a regular dye ink, it's just going to soak right into that Kraft and it's going to look muddy. This still looks blue. So I stamped the sentiment thank you with another Distress Oxide ink on Kraft cardstock, and now I'm just going to cut that out with the heart dye and layer our stenciled background over some pattern paper, pop up the heart in between. I just love the way that Kraft looks with stamping on it. You can also stamp with white pigment ink. You could do heat embossing on it, but I love stenciling on the Kraft with some Distress Oxide ink because you can really pick your colors then. You can decide what you want to use, and that salvage patina works really well with this kit. I also used Kitsch Flamingo for the sentiment and some enamel dots and little hearts. Okay, now we're gonna ink over some dry embossing. So first I'm gonna run the embossing folder through my spellbinders so you can see that I ran it back and forth because it's a little bit thinner and I wanted to make sure I got a good impression. So then I'm going to use that same ergonomic blending brush to get a very light coat of the same salvaged patina. I'm really stuck in that color today because I think it goes so well with the kit. And that's just going to show up the embossed pattern even more on white cardstock. I love the look of plain white with embossing, but if you really want to see that pattern, you might want to ink over it just a touch, just to get it to show up. Then I'm going to use some Distress Oxide ink to stamp that outline of the thank you and then cut it out with the heart die and pop that up on top. And you can see that beautiful blue pattern paper in the background is also from the kit. And those very glittery enamel dots are just perfect to accent and embellish a card. Next up, we're going to heat emboss this sentiment. It is really easy to do. These are high quality stamps and they come out really, really well when you heat emboss. So I'm just going to pour white heat embossing powder over some Versamark ink or some white pigment ink, depending on what you're using, and then heat set it. And you can see that it just really stamps absolutely beautifully. So I love the look of heat embossing, especially with white embossing powder on colorful cardstock. I'm just going to cut that out with the die as well. And don't forget to heat emboss a sub sentiment too. And you can trim off tiny little bits with that trimmer, the Tim Holtz Tonic Studios guillotine trimmer. I am going to mat pattern paper on cardstock. So everything is cut down by 1/4 of an inch. And I love that look of double mat of the two different colors of cardstock. I don't do it often enough, but I think with all these really bright colors, I was tempted to do it again and again with this kit. I think these colors were made for me. Don't you agree? I mean, this is right up my alley. So I'm going to use the dots that match the colors of the speech bubbles and try and get one on a whole bunch of them, just again to add a little bit of shine and dimension. Let's use the small stamps from the stamp set as well, because they sometimes get short shrift. People forget to use them or just don't know how to use them. So I am going to stamp the little hearts. They're actually medium hearts. There's even smaller ones now that I'm going to stamp that you can die cut as well. So I'm going to stamp medium and small out of a rainbow of inks, and then I'm going to die cut them all out. Yes, I do have to do each one individually, but I can use the same pieces of pixie tape to hold those dies in place. Now I'm going to use little bits of foam tape to pop up this entire card. So the background is that embossing folder. Again, I did share that I like it on the white cardstock. I think it just adds subtle dimension and interest to the background of the card. But then I'm going to pop up even more than that to add more dimension, those medium hearts, and then I even popped up on top of the medium hearts a smaller heart. So layers of dimension. I love different layers of dimension. I think it adds tons of interest. And then of course I'm going to add some of those shimmery enamel dots. I love the glitter and shine in them, and it just is such an easy way to accent a card. Next up, I'm going to share an easy way to place the letters. So I'm going to hold a blue die cut heart behind a white die cut heart of the thank you. And then I'm going to add some liquid glue behind the letters. So I held the blue heart in place with pixie tape behind the cut out letters. And then I'm just adding liquid glue to the letters and popping them into place. And then I'm going to make sure they're dry, but not so dry that I'm grabbing the outline as well. But I want them to be dry so that they stay exactly where I put them in place. And that is just a really easy way to make sure those letters are exactly where they're supposed to be. Then just remove that pixie tape and look at how cute that looks. I love that there are dies and stamps and just different options for this image that you can do a ton of different techniques with this card kit. I'm going to add a few of those little enamel dots right to the die cut letters. I just did it for 3 of the letters. I thought it was just kind of a fun look for a couple of them, and it's just such a cute font too that it really was fun to play with. Thanks again to Pink and Main for sponsoring this video, and I don't know about you, but I love card kits that come with lots of supplies like embossing folders that you can use over and over again on a ton of different cards. Let me know what your favorite supply from the card kit was down in the comments below. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. You're going to be able to hear that, aren't you? This is just great. Super great. With blah, blah, I'll see you again soon. Okay, now the concrete stops.